Good morning. A year ago, I was here in Bangalore. I won't discuss traffic today. But I stayed at the hotel last night, just in case. And I wanted to talk to you last year about India. In order to make sure you got it right, I was dressed up as an Indian. And then I was telling you how many times I'd been into India, which was then 65, I think. Now it's 76. And trying to get you to accept me as an Indian guy so that you would listen to what I wanted to tell you. Today I have a disclaimer. I dressed up as a global guy, like you, by the way, put on a blue suit, and I want you to listen to me, not as a French guy that I was born being, but as a global guy trying to understand. What does that mean? It means basically that you have to read this book. You have to read this book. Not to buy it like everybody does and put it in the shelf, which is what most people do. They read 3 pages, then park it so they look good in front of people, but read it. I always have it with me. Always my bag, and every time I go to India, I read a chapter of 2. I read the last chapter, then the first one, then the second. Total chaos. I read it. I like reading it. It's written by a professor of INSEAD, an American lady, called Erin Meyer. And what is there is factually true. It's factually true. It helps you decipher why we are different. Even before we say the first word, we are different. So that's my disclaimer. My disclaimer is I have read this book several times because I'm getting old now, so I tend to forget, and I have to read again. It's complex, and it's real stories. Do read it to understand. So I assume my disclaimer is over. I assume now that you agree with me that we have all read this book. Thank you. What we need to discuss today, after what Paris said and what Naveen said, which are very important discussions, is basically that what I call Next India is possible. Actually, what I've put there is, I can see it. Next India is the program we've launched in Altran when we have made the decision that India would become the powerhouse of the group 4 years ago. That's how we call it. But I would like to go back a bit in history, because there is always the truth in history. When you're lost, go back to history. There's a moment where you will find the answer to your question. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's there. That's the history. That's the history of India, 2,000 years ago. And by the way, there's China as well. And there's no one else. That's what was happening until 1700, when India was up to 30% of the world GDP, whatever we used to call it then. And the way it was doing it was gem, diamond, textiles, spices, different things. And the Chinese were doing other things, gunpowder, other stuff. That's the starting point of our conversation today. And now we're in a situation where we're saying 5 trillion, 10 trillion, whatever trillion, which is today's measure, 2025, 2034. Okay, big numbers. We measure it like this way. These are some of the new KPIs. But always remember this. This is where we are coming from. This is where you are coming from. So where were we today in India? Oops, sorry. I went too fast. There's some latency in the... Here we go. Here we go again. That's not very nice trying that on me, because it works. You did 3 things brilliant. You all know this. The first one is called MOM, M-O-M. Everybody calls it MOM here, which was the first time a country could send something to Mars right the first time. The first extraordinary success was that. This is what we call first time right in our business, first time right. But there's more than that. It was done with $72 million. $72 million. The American, to land a big thing, spent $2 billion. 72, $2 billion. That is what I claim as success. First time right, and do it at the highest value for the lowest cost. The second one is launching, and hopefully the next one will take off on the 22nd of July by the press this morning, is launching 104 satellites in one single rocket. There again, never been done before. The second one who did that were the Russians, and they actually managed 37 satellites, about a third of what India has achieved. Out of those 104, only 3 satellites were Indians, or for Indians. 96 were for the Americans. That's not a bad idea. And then you had a few, one to Israel, one to Netherlands, 5 of them. Where you were again smarter is the first satellite to leave the rocket was yours. Just in case. Just in case. That is very smart as well. And the third example is this airport in Kerala, Cochin, which is all solar, operated on solar. Okay, everybody's doing that, frankly. But then it was started 6 years ago. No, actually, the story is better than that. They had only 100K. Then they went to 400K watts. And now it's running at 30 mega. So the idea started like trickle. Oh, we have 100. Went to 400. Now it's 29.5 million mega. And then on top of that, besides being operated only with solar energy, as clean as you can get, for the biggest airport in Kerala, then as well, they're producing food now. Because they thought, why don't we produce food, but because there's this and that. And now they're producing 60 tons a year of food that they give, that they sell. So this is India. India can do this. We've heard from Naveen about unicorns, 26 unicorns in this country. You've heard from Parry, +1 every month. And we know how it's going to go. This comes from 7,200 tech startups. 7,200. Is that big? Is that small? I don't know, to be honest. But 26, I know, is big. It's big. Because you get the speed there. You know all of them. But that's not the point. The interesting point is you become a unicorn faster in India, on average, than you do in the USA. You know this Silicon Valley thing? Call it the Bangalore Plateau. Call it the Bangalore Plateau. That's it. Silicon Valley, Bangalore Plateau, off you go. Next one. So, at the end of the day, I still don't see what's the problem. And India has more than talent. We've heard this for ages. It's a boring statement. When I wrote it, I was like, Daniel, you are being boring again. And then I got more boring because then I go into the generation this. I hate this generation this. And what generation am I? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But then still you have 500 million Generation Z. 500 million. It's bigger than total Europe, even counting everything and everything, even the English. Then, speaking of English, you have 175 million people who speak English. And then you have engineers. You have engineers like no one has engineers. So what's the problem? So I'm going to share with you how we looked at India back in 2015, and how we have, with no plan, We just had numbers. But I never considered numbers were a plan. Numbers is basically a statement of a direction that you want to go for. It's sort of compass to tell you we're going there. And you heard from Navin, he didn't know, basically. Good for him, he had no number. But we had a set of numbers, and we decided to go, and we decided that India would be the powerhouse of the Altran engineering company around the world. And then, what I'm going to tell you now is not all what that I knew then, but it's all that I know now. So it's feedback. If I had known all of this then, I wouldn't have done it. I would have been paralyzed. Because when you start that sort of journey, you better not know how difficult it's going to be. Because that could stop you right there. So first, it's about speed. Speed and how you adapt as you're driving fast and faster. We went from 500 to 14,000 engineers in less than 4 years. We had bumps, we had difficulties, we had headwinds, tailwinds. We didn't choose the wind, we just kept the direction. We took calculated risks. The important word in calculated risk is risk. It's not calculated. Otherwise, the Excel will make decisions that you don't dare make yourself. But we took. And some of the risk materialized, some others did not, but we were always trying to keep what I call this adaptability, which is basically driven by the risks and how you mitigate them and how you fix and repair your mistakes. And then discipline in execution. Now, back to what Navin said, discipline is not about everyone standing alert in rows. No. Discipline execution is how, when you are in total chaos, you keep discipline. Because it's in chaos that you need discipline. Otherwise, you're back to what Navin was saying. You're just paralyzing your organization, paralyzing your people, actually scaring your people. You create the fear, which paralyzes everybody. No, it's execution to coordinate, to get the people in chaos to go again, go for it, ask for help, what smart people do. And as we did this, we were building a model. Because if you grow without a model, especially an industrialized one in the engineering space, given the complexity, the variety of what we have to handle, if it's not industrialized with methods, knowledge, sharing, etc., you just build your own chaos. The second thing, besides speed, is about leadership. So Parry had very strong statements around leadership. I totally subscribe to everything Parry has said, especially on middle management, especially on governance, especially on status. This is fundamental. You cannot embark if you do not have leadership, if you don't have the Navins of the world, those people. But not just. You can't create a world just with Navins. You need the leaders that will take this forward. You need to grow, you need to be at scale. You can't be at scale with just individuals. You need leaders. So it's about cross-cultural adaptability. When I've heard this conversation earlier this morning saying, oh, why did the GCOEs, I never remember, I call them the captives, why did the GCOEs do like this? And those guys, the first year, they try to find the airport, the second year, they talk to groups, third year, they look for another job. That's in the best of cases, right? It's about cross-cultural. There are people who come to India, they hate India. Well, stay home then. Stay home if you don't like India. Or they come here and they complain about what they see, what they don't see. And we have some in our company as well. I tell them, stay home. If you come to India, come and meet the people. Don't come to play golf or cricket. Go meet the people. But even that, how many people outside India, when they're on the way back, could quote 5 names of Indian people they met? Zero. They would confuse them. So I have my own trick. I only call first names, and then I put the first letter. So I have Rajesh S, P, K. I have my Rajeshes, I have my Naveens, I have my Nadims, I have my Sanjay, my Sanjeevs. And there's a guy even who dared have the same letters than me. My name is Daniel Alain Chaffraix, so I'm called DAC, DSC. And this guy, Daniel Anil Kumar, which is DAC. So the first time I met Daniel, I said, we have a problem. How about DAC 2? And now the whole company calls him DAC 2. He's a celebrity. But this is cross-cultural adaptability. I mean, if you don't have those discussions, what are we talking about? The guys will come and go. And instead of saying, this guy in India told me this, well, say his name down. Don't call him this guy in India. That is cross-cultural adaptability. Oh, by the way, it goes both ways. So you don't start telling me, those French with their yellow gilet jaune. No, I'm not one of those guys, huh? So it's not the French, the English. So the cross-cultural adaptability is absolutely mandatory in the leadership and the leaders that you're appointing. Collaborative mindset. It's a mindset. If you want to perform, you need a collaborative mindset. Most of what I'm saying is not IQ-based, it's EQ-based. It's all about the emotional aspects of human beings. IQs, we have too many. By the way, we have so many that we call it artificial intelligence, right? And we call it machine learning. Whack. I hate those words. Artificial intelligence, machine learning. Who are we, guys? So park this in IQ. And then you open the EQ box. Wow, it's Christmas. It's Christmas. Open up. It's Diwali. Come on. It's all about EQ. This is where people make a difference. Why? Because you don't add IQ and EQ. You compound them. So if your EQ is 0, you're 0. The best of IQ with no EQ is 0. Remember this. My name is Daniel. I said that. Okay? So when you look then at collaborative mindset, most IQ, EQ-free people say, give me a break, collaborative, come on, those guys go too slow, they don't get it, I'm not going to waste time, let me move on, bada. Okay, move on. Alone. Enjoy. You're alone, buddy. And if the collaborative mindset combined with cross-cultural adaptability, then you won't get those bad words from Paris that you got this morning about what the clients think of India, of how we work in this country with standard images. That won't happen. And the last leadership is drive to achieve. Don't drive to drive. You need to drive to something. That's leadership. You're not driving to just budget or I'll make my quota. No, you're driving to beyond. You're driving to what we call the ambition. If you're driving to target, you're driving to nowhere. You're just a peon. You're just a peon. You belong to an Excel. Just an Excel. If you're driving to beyond, then you become a leader and not a manager. Talents. This is a third lever that we have forcefully worked on. In our engineering space, addressing all industries, all what you call horizontals, etc., we have worked on, and we're working on more than 400 skill sets. This is huge. This is huge. How can you work around 400 skill sets? Well, we're doing it. Are we perfect? Certainly not. Are we working hard? Certainly yes. And it should be more. Because there are dynamics here. There are skill sets that will disappear, or that have no more value, or that will be RPA'd, or AI'd, or ML'd, or whatever you want. And there are the new skills that we need to go for. We are working on continuous upscaling. You can lose a skill in weeks. Why? Because there are millions of other people somewhere you don't know who are doing exactly the same thing than you are, but better. faster, cheaper. So continuously, we have to consider that what we learned in school certainly has been erased years ago, but what we were doing now needs a refresh. But it's not management to tell, it's people to ask. And the third one is the most important here today in India. And don't forget, I have a disclaimer, so you cannot disagree. It's balancing experience and expertise. Every time we're looking for a new client, which is not in India, looking for a project, etc., and they start to challenge the people that we put in front of them, they will end up, most of the time, saying, okay, I can read the expertise, I see this, but how about experience? Have they ever done this? Well, of course not. There's always a first time, isn't there? And the point is, we have a sort of latency that I have observed here, where we focus a lot on the expertise, less so on experience. Why? Because expertise can be theoretical domains, where anyone can be brilliant. Experience is where you get your scars, your mistakes, your error, your failures. But on the other hand, with no failures, you have no experience. So at some point in time, working the balancing act of working our population of engineers around those two criteria versus imbalance on expertise. And last, innovation must be a culture. Now, I know this word innovation doesn't mean anything anymore, but I still use it because I haven't found another one. But innovation must be cultural. We must be bored. Anytime you have done something 3 times, ask to do something else. Come on. Be bored. Work to becoming bored. To try and do something else. This will force the experience, the expertise, and the innovation. And without the clients, we would be nothing. The focus on clients. Whether, again, I've heard strong words from Paris this morning about the fact that we're not listening to clients, we don't understand clients, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Let me use some technical American. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. It's a cultural problem. It's the way we connect. It's the way we communicate. It's not about English. It's cultural. It's cultural. Yesterday I was in a meeting with a team. There were 3 young women and 1 young man. Young for me means younger than me, by the way. So, but still I call them young people. And I was challenging them. By the way, some of it was to prepare for this. I challenged them to say, guys, you're from India. Even though I say I'm global, I'm French. So tell me, challenge me, say no, say etc. And then I said to them, but on the other hand, having read the book, I know that we have 2 problems. The first one is because I'm your boss's boss, you look at me being your authority. So you will not disagree with me. In India. In France, don't worry, they would disagree. Huh? But in India, they will not. Besides, what hair I have left is gray. So you respect my age. So there are 2 reasons why you would never challenge me. So I said, I know that, now challenge me. And they did that. Which now I know means no. It took me 10 years to know that this means no. With variations, huh? With variations. So the first thing we need is global shore. The word I hate, I've said it last year, and until my last day I will say it. I hate offshore. I never use this word in my language. Offshore is an insult to this country. Why would there be onshore and offshore? Why don't we swap for once, eh? 20 years. Let's call the USA and Europe offshore and India onshore. How about trying this? You will see their faces. Okay? So the point of today's world is global shore. Just cultures working with cultures, shores working with shores. And this is the first problem we have discussing with clients who don't know India when they talk about India, when they want to work with India, is offshore. Why? Because offshore reminds people of low cost, Oh, and low cost means what? Low quality. Here you go. So this global shore aspect of things. Now, am I done in Altran this? God bless, no. I'm not done. On my ambition of 100, I'm probably at 15, 16. I'm a total failure. There's still 84% of the people who don't think like this. They may say yes in front of me because whatever, but they won't agree. The global shore. This is fundamental. India is one of the many countries of this world. The second one is perception, but perception becomes reality after a while. Perception is that in India we don't commit. We don't commit as strongly as an American, a European would say, you commit. This commitment, sense of commitment, is not expressed and perceived as strongly as it should in front of clients. And most clients, at the end, when you buy services, you trust the guy in front of you. There's no product, there's no nothing to watch. You can come with 2 references, 1 NPS, okay? But at the end of the day, you have to trust someone. So the commitment. The third is, and I touched on that last year, is end-to-end program management. We are still operating as silos across shores. Back to cultural. Why do people operate as silos versus end-to-end? It's because they ignore. They don't know what they don't know. This is a killer in front of clients. This is why we are still so much staff augmentation business in India. We don't go into program, end-to-end, global shore. Complex product development. We are touching complex product development. We got a lot coming from the Harrison teams, are doing fantastic things in product development, not just services project. They're part of the company of the R&D of our clients, working directly with their labs in the US, in Europe, around the world. This is where we have to go to. This is where we are going to. And last, risk and rewards. Clients, they want skin in the game. They're ready to put their skin, we have to put our skin. Risk-reward is something which has to be developed further. This is what will get the trust, the faith. So after all of this, my ambition for India is this. India has all it takes to get there. You've done it. You can do it. You've done better than good. You've done better than better. But there are a number of aspects to change, whether they are driven by unicorn, whether they're driven by profound change in the business, as Barry was mentioning, whether it will be 5 trillion or 10 trillion or more. India is part of the world and could not be considered anymore as being an offshore location where it is cheaper. This is the way Altran has looked at it. There's been quite a lot of communication and activities around Altran. We have never deviated from that trajectory because we believed in India. And when our CEO, Dominique Cerruti, joined Altran in 2015, and I joined just a bit later after him, and we discussed India, the meeting probably lasted 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, we could make the decision because we were both convinced of the power of this country and how it made sense and fit with our strategy in the engineering services space, that it just took us a couple of minutes. Like Naveen said, you decide with the guts, with intuition, with the knowledge you have embarked. But we trust, I trust, that this will happen. Thank you very much.